this map. We take the Holy Island for an English mirror matchup between two of the players that I suspect have the highest count of English games in competitive Age of Empires 4.
The second time we are seeing a mirror in this series. First one was a Delhi mirror won by VortiX on Basin. Now we have an English mirror, so one thing we are sure about is that no one is going to be willing to pull villagers to harass the opponent because, well, guess what? The opponent also has short bows on those villagers.
But wait, if I pull all my no, don't do that. Don't do that, Pigeon. Bad, stupid Pigeon. It's kind of tough, right? There's some cool situations where you get villager conflicts. Like, I think Cauldron is a good example of this, where, like, if you just don't be frugal and you pull enough villagers, you win it, right? But with the play you're talking about, the kind of one that BT done, like, earlier today, where you build on the opponent's gold vein, it's impossible to do because of the fact that they will have all villagers on deck to protect, right? So the only way you can make that play work is if you pull towards your opponent's dock, but if you do that play, you're probably 2 fishing boats or more behind.
Indeed, it's going to be a double dock play over here for DeMusliM. On the other side, I think it's only one dock coming up for VortiX, and I guess the big question is, can you sustain production on double docks? If you can, it's definitely a big W, because VortiX has a different plan. He wants to go for that Vanguard Man-at-Arms harassment, targeting that gold mine to the south, and honestly, that could be a nice target because the backup gold mines aren't favorable for DeMusliM either.
You could even just immediately play out towards the dock because typically in the English mirror, I think actually just in the 12 villager start, we've frequently been seeing 2 to even sometimes 5 villagers pulled to the shoreline fish to build that dock. So you'll have value. Even if you don't kill them, you idle them. And the cool thing is, like, if it's only 5 villagers, if they attack you back, they don't actually kill a men-at-arms quick enough to make it a justifiable investment. Looks like it has been scouted out, so he will know. 2 men-at-arms committed to as well. Now, DeMusliM, he could just not get too, like, greedy with his fishing boat count and now rush Castle, Feudal Age, rather, and solve the problem there. But I have a sneaking suspicion he's just going to continue. Because the cool thing is when you see your opponent do the men-at-arms play like this, their goal is to idle eco. They really suck at killing buildings.
Exactly, like 1 man-at-arms isn't going to make a difference over here, and there's a second one coming for VortiX. So far, what he could accomplish was push those villagers back into the TC. But you see, DeMusliM, he's unfazed by this. He's got an insane lumberjacking income, and he is working on 2 docks. It's starting to show already. He is 3 eco ahead. He's going to move out to the gold mine, and with the vicinity of the TC being rather close to that gold mine, it's going to be challenging for those man-at-arms to do a lot of damage. And
yeah,
if he gets the gold he needs for Feudal Age, his food eco with the fishing ships, the extra fishing ships he has over VortiX, should provide him with a better Feudal Age timing.
So you see what I mean now? So VortiX just commits, and the whole logic here is, like, these villagers, even the attack speed, like, even if these men-at-arms now die, if you just count the time it takes them to kill 1 of these men-at-arms, it's a worthwhile exchange, right? Because on average, a villager gathers 40 resources a minute. You know, so far they've spent, like, what, 20 seconds each? And they've still not killed 1 of them?
Yeah, and there are 2 more man-at-arms coming in here, so this is just going to get worse for DeMusliM. You might want to drop a tower, because the problem here is that, as you said, the villagers don't do enough damage. If those men-at-arms ever walk into the range of the town center, they're dead. But with no tower being nearby, the only thing that you can do is use the villagers, and by the time you pick off one of those men-at-arms, a new one shows up.
Yeah, and by the way, like, this, to your whole point of, like, they walk into the TC, they're dead. They're not, though, because it's a water map. You have no villagers on the sheep. So, like, you can't bait him in and then garrison in, as we've all experienced against an English player, and get Gatling gun down in, like, the 12th century, right? I don't know how they get that technology. That's not there, because the rest of DeMusliM's eco is on the woodline far away.
That's a good point as well, but it's also the fact that VortiX is doing a great job with the micros. So even if you had villagers ready to garrison, they probably would never have a chance to take a shot on those men-at-arms.
This is so silly. Like, it's actually so obnoxious how effective this is. Look at what DeMusliM had to do. How many villagers has he now pulled? This is getting insane.
Yeah, it's funny that you actually said, and we were discussing this in a pregame, I think at the beginning of this set, how sometimes players just hide their strategies by saying that, oh yeah, this thing isn't gonna work in an interview. DeMusliM said prior to this round that he thinks that Dark Age aggression isn't gonna be as relevant, quoting that Mongols might actually get weaker because of that, and he also thinks that Dark Age men-at-arms won't be a thing. Now we know that this was just a deception. He knew fully well that this was going to work well in this setup as well.
Let's be fair. You just said that's a deception, but DeMusliM's the one that said it wouldn't work. And now it surprised him and is working again. So you sure it's not that DeMusliM truly believed that?
Actually true. You're right. I actually confused the players. I was like, yeah, DeMusliM says this doesn't work, and now he makes it work. But no, it's actually VortiX. VortiX is like, hold my tea, being the English. Finally, the tower comes up from DeMusliM. You really have to wonder if this would have been better if he just started with this. He had the wood for it.
Okay, but hear me out. DeMusliM just rushes Castle Age now, and it's better. Right? Like this is what I've been watching on the side. Check the eco comparison.
Yes.
I think VortiX has like at least 4 less fishing boats, and he's been spending it on all these men-at-arms.
Exactly. And the problem is that it's going to take some time until those ships get to the docks of DeMusliM. By that time, he's going to have his own combat ships. Decisive water victory won't be accomplished here by VortiX soon enough to stop DeMusliM from getting into Castle Age.
He's almost 10 fishing boats ahead. I'm pretty sure DeMusliM just rushes Castle Age here.
Yes. He needs to send a lot of villagers to gold, though, because that's going to be a limiting factor. But he's got the food for it, and he's going to have enough wood to make a couple of combat ships. So it's not like VortiX will be able to do much against his fishing eco either.
So you're fine, because like DeMusliM, his tech up's going to be late, and he's probably going to be forced to build combat vessels as a result. Like, he could, in theory, just go all in on castle, but I think he's going to defend on water. But I still think, like, he could just put all the people on gold and get the gold now that they're here, if he needs it that badly, right? Like, with the amount of food he's got coming in, I do think he can afford to defend and go Castle Age. Yeah, you'll probably lose a few fishing boats in the process, but you'll be a whole age ahead.
And you could go into Castle Age with the King's Palace, so you'll have a second town center to offset that lost eco.
I like the opening of the archer ship. That this is a good understand by VortiX. When you're this far ahead on the tech up, that's when you go archer ships, because they can do this. The saturation fire can almost just lock in kills on fishing boats, even when you think that you peel the back correctly.
Yeah, they also move a little faster than the ballista ships, so that couple of seconds advantage that you get getting here also comes into play.
DeMu's not even trying to heal them with the other fishing boats, and that's because if you try to do that, especially on smaller ships, they're too close together. It means the AoE spread hits everything.
Doc actually gets a little blaze. I don't think he's going to be able to save that, so his naval production isn't going to be flashy.
He's got another dock behind this, right? I think he's on trip docks, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not too bad going down to 2 here. It's just a case now, does he feel like going Castle Age is worth it and sacrificing water? Because you will be, to a certain extent, giving it over. Unless you can get a miraculous demo ship player that instantly takes out double Springald.
Yeah, it's only a couple of combat ships coming in here from VortiX, and DeMusliM knows that. He's got the docks to repair.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying the longbows is a cool detail, right?
Yeah, it's a cool detail, indeed. I think he's just going to go castle. He's got enough here to hold off the couple of ships that VortiX is pushing with. And even if he doesn't, I think it's a good risk to take to go to Castle Age, even if you lose the water. Although you don't want to lose water like this. That was a little clumsy from him.
Whoops. That's just thrown away. And the interesting part is DeMusliM, like, he needs this food more than ever because he's not going Castle Age. Look at what he's building. He's building mass horsemen. He wants to try and win on land, but the price might be waterside.
This is the worst case scenario for him. Losing the water and staying in feudal age is the terrible thing for him to happen. And look at that. He cancels all the horsemen. He's going castle.
This is the worst case situation, though. Look at what the fishing boats are doing. They're clustered together with an archer ship here. So this is an even quicker burn down than it otherwise would have been.
I feel like DeMusliM has just given up on the water already, but that just shatters his entire food eco, and really the 3 horsemen that he has made is what is separating him from Castle Age, and it's just such a terrible position to be in. No water now, but also no Castle Age.
Look at his gold. Look at DeMusliM's. He overbed himself on the gold side. Like, he's got 1,000 plus there. He'll be able to get enough food together on land, but like, VortiX has full water control. Now he just needs to hold. That's the important detail. If he hemorrhages villages here, DeMusliM fans can breathe a sigh of relief because Dimu will still be in the game.
Exactly, and it has to be the King's Palace now as your Castle Age landmark. This force is going to be insufficient for DeMusliM. VortiX has longbows back at home. Best thing that DeMusliM can hope for is forcing some idle time, maybe trying to burn down the docks, but he needs to get to Castle Age yesterday, and he's going to go up with the King's Palace as expected. Curious spot for him initially. He's going to place it now right next to that gold mine.
Honestly, this is what makes the English so frustrating, right? The attack speed aura, the TC threat, DeMusliM of what should have been a little bit of a frustration of a raiding force, not able to be that. Sure, be able to take out a few longbows, but eco, idle time, minimal overall. He has at least got the tech up going, and it's somewhat hidden away, right? So VortiX can't do anything about this. But he can now start to boost up himself, right? He was a bit slower on the fishing count. But now he doesn't have to invest in these naval vessels anymore. This should be where VortiX should be able to just kind of come over the top the moment he sees that tech complete.
Yeah, the concern for DeMusliM is that he lost his fishing eco too fast, compared to his Castle Age timing at least. If he went to Castle Age without making a single horseman, he would have been to Castle Age by the time he loses the fishing eco. Now he's down by 15, and by the time he catches up in villager count thanks to that second TC, VortiX will likely be able to add some more fish, possibly even go to Castle Age himself. So best thing that he can hope for, best thing that DeMusliM can hope for, is an even-ish economy scenario, but even that is a bit of a dream, I guess.
Well, is this VortiX's nightmare now that he sees this tech up, or did he anticipate it? His Lombos are on the move. We're at the beginning of the age up, and if DeMusliM is going to be going Knights, as most English players would, and he is in fact doing, it means he won't have them immediately. However, this King's Palace's position ensures that VortiX can't deny anything. You can see the generation of resources. Dimu had the perfect position for this landmark.
Yeah, that's a really good landmark positioning for Dimu. Now, he's going to have to make a transition to farms eventually. And the sooner the better, I say. Because right now, VortiX doesn't have a definitive force to really push him with. These longbows, they will need some time until they find angles. And DeMusliM needs a steady source of food. If he relies way too long for sheep, he's going to run out of safe food the moment the push really comes in, I feel.
These Knights, this is the problem. When you have just so few of them, this many Lombos can somewhat deal with you. Of course, they are still only fuel-age units, and the reason they're being dealt with is because DeMusliM jumped the gun. He's only now getting undermesh, but once that undermesh is in place, this Lombo mass will be counted out by simply 2 Knights.
Yeah, and speaking of Knights, there are a lot of exposed villagers over here for VortiX. Despite him having fish, he's also moving out for a hunt, and this is a prime target for Dimu right now.
He's got so many ways he can go here. I think, like, if he can go up to 4 stables, he's pretty spooky. But we have to remember, like, he's playing English on a water map where you got pushed off water. It's not that phase where you have, like, 16 farms, right? That you normally see for the English player at this stage. He's probably got, like, 1 cluster set up, if that. I'm kind of surprised he didn't try to play on a deer, but then again, he was facing this vanguard force of Lombos.
Oh, King's Pass now coming in here for VortiX, though. He's still ahead by 18 eco, and once he gets to Castle Age, he's going to have those Castle Age upgrades in on the longbows. He can start mixing in crossbows, and don't forget, folks, Council Hall did get a buff. So VortiX can get a decent amount of crossbows out in a matter of moments. And once that's the case, he's got a force that VortiX has, or DeMusliM rather, has basically no response to.
I mean, he doesn't even really need the crossbows. Just the spearmen alone, like, mass longbows when there's this many knights, because, like, the longbows will have value to kill eco afterwards, right? Like, I think you could just go spearmen longbows, and it's efficient because you're saving resources per unit, right? So, like, you get more clump, and you kind of reach a Zerg point in the game. But nice wraparound in the meantime by DeMusliM onto the gold, trying to snipe out a few villies. However, his allies will work as enemies, as he actually had his knights body blocked by his fellow compatriot there. I like that VortiX just really isn't giving anything over, right? Like, notice that he doesn't really move many villagers away, and he doesn't even get a kill on that stone outcropping, but instead loses 2 knights.
Yeah, 2 knights gone here, now 1 taken down in the middle of the field, and we're looking at 52 army against just 7. Some of that obviously for VortiX is in the form of ships, of course, but still, we got a massive amount of longbows, spearman numbers also rising, and right now, DeMusliM, he's just slowly trying to trickle in some longbows, but in a mirror matchup when you're making the same unit as your opponent, but you're down by about, actually, quite a lot of population, by 60 population.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, that is troublesome.
Yeah, so this is mainland England versus the island of Man. Is probably the best way to think of it. Like, it doesn't feel very fair. And the problem is, like, now that you see that he's got Lombos, you have to get Lombos. But VortiX is so far ahead. And on top of that, he's prepped the blacksmith upgrades. You see DeMusliM get level 1 upgrade on range damage. Well, VortiX is going in for level 2. This is very important. It means these knights are going to run into quite the predicament when they try to take these fights. I think DeMuslim's probably going to have to even consider going horseman instead.
Yeah, question is, does he have the time for this? And don't forget, he's yet to make a farm transition. So he's going to start running out of food in about a minute or 2. Whereas for VortiX, he's thriving. He's got the hunts available, he's got the berries available, all the map control he wants, and he's not messing around. He wants this game done and dusted. Dropping the forward keep, also taking away all possible access to food that DeMusliM could still have.
What's that? You say I've got an eco lead? Oh, you're right. Let me just pull some of those village, bro. I think we can do some with them. Oh, it's so frustrating as well, because that means that now you're going to have to face network of citadels compared to your network of castles in your own base. It doesn't get much worse than this.
And don't forget, that castle is also Siege Workshop, so not only will you have great forward presses, not only will you have the network of citadels buffing you, there's also gonna be a place to produce trebuchets at, so you can start taking down those key buildings from DeMusliM. Demu, he needs to stop this, but he doesn't have the tools for this one. This is desperation rather than commitment.
His longbows are just getting bodied. Notice the VortiX didn't even fully peel back, right? He just tanked the charge with the longbow, spin and follow through afterwards, and look at this wraparound. It reeks of desperation. DeMusliM, with just 2 knights left to his name, has no way of stopping the castle drop, has no way of denying VortiX, who will continue on and push DeMusliM down under.
DeMusliM still alive in here on the lower bracket, but he's gonna have to take down quite a few players to get a decent amount of points over here. First round of Golden League, he was top 24, now down to the lower bracket. He's very close to elimination, although not out just yet, but one misstep, one slip up, and he could be out, especially because the early rounds of the lower bracket is also best of one. Just one slip up, and his chances to make the playoffs could even be gone because of how low his points are right now in total.
And this is really well played by VortiX. I mentioned at the beginning of the day that you have this situation where people haven't been able to play that many of these permutations, right? It is a very different situation, as you're seeing with these type of builds involving men at arms early, when you're starting with double the village.